Uh, okay. Oops, lost the show notes. Okay. Um, okay, so guys, we're going to be covering um, the Anunnaki today. Um, what if the first civilization didn't just rise? What if the early records of humanity carved in clay tablets 5,000 years ago were witnessing reports of giant sky people who ruled the earth and it wasn't just myth? Uh, did they create humanity? Is there any truth to some of the conspiracy theories, or were they just a regular old run of the mill pre civilization? Tonight, we go deep into the oldest story on record, the Anunnaki. So, we're going to be comparing and contrasting the three major, I guess, outlooks on this, and I'm going to be taking the point of view of that, I guess, um, the more mythological, I don't know, I guess we could call it the ancient aliens version of it is uh, the truth. And what is your perspective on it, Tony?
I'm going to take. I guess we'll probably talk on one of my perspectives because there's sort of two of them. The original is that I'm going to look at what the academics in general say about it and what their opinion of that theory is and how they derived their opinion and is it consistent with what the fossil record and archaeological discoveries have shown. And I'll just like to preface it with this: it happened 5 to 10,000 years ago. So any of these people trying to accurately guess about what they actually said, because as we know, in common vernacular or any writings, if you don't understand the context of the particular culture, what they mean by the words, you'll be missing about half the meaning. So we're going to just argue both sides and see where it goes. I just believe that we're both speculating, and
Yeah, there's no
and
way
I
to know.
think it'll be a good show.
No,
It'll be a good show.
there's no way to real know. And you're exactly right. The most important aspect is essentially the slang, and we don't get that. So, like, if somebody was to read some modern writer and they would say how cool somebody was, they could interpret that completely incorrectly. They won't assume that means that person is the most interesting or well rounded or fun to be around. They might assume, oh, this guy is got a low body temperature, and
Oh,
so
he's boring. Yeah, he
yeah,
has no energy. He's a dud
yes, and
or
so
she.
a lot of the um, and the etymology, I guess, of the meanings of the words and stuff like that, it doesn't translate um, through time through multiple generations. But we're gonna start with the baseline, and I just talk about what the mainstream has said on it, just as kind of a starting point, and then we'll get more into some of the other more exotic views of it. So, um, what is known about Babylonia and the Sumerians is that basically, um, out of nowhere, basically, 5,000 years ago, a civilization popped up, and it was basically whole and complete with laws and all of that stuff baked in from day one. It went from zero to fully formed civilization. And their uh, gods in the standard reading of it were the Anunnaki, which was a class of deity, and basically that means the royal offspring of An, which is the sky god, who decreed humans' fate, including ordering the flood, and later appeared as the Anunnaki appeared as the seven judges of the netherworld, which is the underworld or Hades or whatever. And their roles, through the various, whether it's Sumeria, because there's multiple cultures that worship these beings. There was the Arcadians and the Babylonians. Their standard position in their cosmology changes over time, and so they start off as sky beings, and they end up being underworld gods after, I guess, the flood, and there's just different interpretations of them, and that is what my understanding is the conventional view of them. But they existed as a group of gods prior to the flood. And so, what's interesting that I find particularly interesting about the mainstream view is they have this document which is called the King's List, which documents the gods of all the various city states, including And another interesting fact is a lot of these city states were deemed to be completely fake for a long time. They were just made up, basically mythological states with mythological rulers that didn't really exist until they started finding cities like Uruk and some of these other mythological cities, and then they started saying that, well, these cities had real rulers, and this part is true after the flood, according to this document, but before the flood that was all made up. And the reason they say that is because the kings that are after the flood only live 80, 100 years, or rule that long, actually, which is still pretty long. But before that, they would rule anywhere from 28,000 years to 43,000 years. And the King's List goes back 240,000 years. And so prior to the flood. So and that's considered to be mainstream archaeology. The document, the stone tablet, exists, and so it's interesting to me that the Sumerian King's List is partially considered to be truth, and then partially considered to be, I guess, mythological. And so, what do you think about that?
Well, science in general, whether it's the Bible or any other religious text, and a lot of the stuff is religious because they're talking about their deities.
Oh,
They
this is
tend to,
100% their Bible. This would be the
yeah,
Anunnaki is.
the scientists always want to, paint with the same brush that the parts they agree with are true and the parts they disagree with are myth. And if it doesn't fit into their worldview, then it's a myth. Um, that's not necessarily good science. That's just a bias. That doesn't mean necessarily that the people wrote, because people claim, oh, the Bible's changed over the 4,000 years it's been around. This is even older,
A lot older.
and say it was 400,000 years. There's a good chance. I don't know if this is just being a devil's advocate because I have no idea that something is untrue on it. Matter of fact, there's a very good chance of that. So their opinions are probably no better than anyone else's. I'll be honest.
You mean the
They,
scientists?
yeah,
Mainstream science?
yeah, because they still can't. There's for example, in the pyramids. I've talked to people from Egypt that live there, and they look like Egyptians. I mean, they look like the paintings on the wall. They still exist. Those people still are there, and they say from their myths that the pyramids are pre-flood, that they were power generating pyramids, that they weren't. No, there's no pharaohs buried in them. that they
and
would just use for power. But mainstream science keeps trying to say, oh, they couldn't do it. They didn't have the technology, but yet this copper wires and everything inside those pyramids, and huge, gigantic copper wires. And I've seen pictures of them. This is not just something that I heard someone talk about. They showed the picture. They walked inside the pyramid and they showed a picture of the huge copper wires in there. Why would the people who are using stone tools and brass cutting devices drill holes and put copper wire in there?
well,
You know that
even the stone that they're cutting, it's not all sandstone. A lot of the pyramid
no, the
is
conductive part of it, the outside was granite
right, and
because they
so
needed it to conduct
copper
electricity.
a copper tool can't cut that. That stone is too hard to be cut. Uh, it would need a diamond or some sort of exotic metal, something that's harder than granite to cut it. And the same thing is true in Babylon. Is the most peculiar thing about it is it's roughly 6,000 years old, give or take, and it goes from basically no civilization at all to having all these massive monuments that are just as impressive, just basically more destroyed. But the remnants indicate that these are impressive buildings that would rival the Parthenon or the Great Pyramids and all that stuff. That and if anybody's in the chat, if we could get a report on how the sound is, often there's issues with the sound, and I just want to make sure that there isn't any. If somebody could say something, but we hate when we find out 30 minutes in that there's been an echo or something like that we just overlooked. Anyways, the magnitude of the objects that they were moving, just building everything out of granite or sandstone, and everything is multi tons. It doesn't make a lot of sense from the point of view of a primitive culture. I mean, the building materials they were using, we wouldn't use. They were building everything to last.
I checked the sound mic. It's good.
Okay, and Tanya says it sounds okay. That's good. Thank you, Tanya. And if you have any opinions, just chime in there. I mean, we would love to get. We're not experts on this. It's just an interesting subject. But when we look at what they were doing, they were building everything to last tens of thousands of years. Even the most primitive dwellings were built to last forever. And that doesn't make a lot of sense unless you have people that are living an extremely long time. And it just, the entire concept, both in the Bible, a lot of people don't really know this, but a lot of the Old Testament comes from these old documents of the Anunnaki. They share the same, we call them demons, but a lot of the gods of the Anunnaki are represented in the Bible. A Baal, as an example, is an Anunnaki. And I just find it odd that that our religious texts acknowledge these things existed. Baalbek, which is a city in Lebanon, I believe, was supposedly built by the Anunnaki. We look at the buildings, and it doesn't look like it was built to scale. Of course, the thing about the Anunnaki is they were giants. They were 12 feet tall, roughly, or 15 feet tall.
Which fits in with the narrative of
The
the
Nephilim
Nephilim.
and the yes, and so it's, to me, there is this, what is the difference between the Elohim and the Anunnaki? I don't think there is any, and that's exactly what we were just saying. Is I think that they are the same thing. The Nephilim, the Elohim, the Anunnaki. The Elohim are the Jewish version that they would call, the Elohim in the Jewish Bible is God. There's only one. But the Elohim is actually a plural word. It's a very strange thing that they do.
It's because they were, according to the biblical scholars, they were alluding to a triune God even back then.
Right.
But it's that God has three distinct personalities, but is only one being. And we have a lot of arguments about that. People say, "Well, how can that possibly be? I can't comprehend that." Well, I can't comprehend most of anything that God does. So it's or
Or
anything the Anunnaki did. I mean, I'm sure that they were, since they were half, I believe they were half angels. They were probably a little bit smarter than us, just to say.
the
Um,
the there's a trifecta in the Babylonian religion as well. It's On, which is the God above everything, and then his two sons. One was good, and one is evil. Yes, Ezekiel. That's the flying machine, Ezekiel's wheel. But there's Enlil and like El is the two, and one was the good God who loved humanity, and one was the evil God who and they were the two sons of On, which was uh, the divine force God. He didn't embody physically. He
and
was
you can say that lines up with Christianity, with his his only begotten Son being Jesus, and Satan being his favorite angel, and uh, hence why things, he wasn't ended. It seems that the deity that created universe has soft spots for his creation. So yeah, and then triune for Christianity, the third one is the Holy Spirit, which is basically the the operating system of our realm, and Jesus is the GUI, user graphic interface, and God Himself, God the Father, is the machine language which controls the whole universe, which is the whole universe. So it's, if you look at it from an engineering standpoint or a religious standpoint, uh, all those things are very similar, and just because they might disagree on, you know, um, Lucifer's position in it, doesn't mean they disagree.
So in the Bible, Ezekiel is the Hebrew prophet active during the Babylonian exile.
Hmm.
And because Tanya asked about it, and uh, it means God of strength is what that was. Sounds like Thor or potentially Hercules. And it was talked about in the 6th century BC. And there's essentially the Old Testament talks about him in several places. Chapters 1 through 24 is the judgment of Judah and Jerusalem. He was active in Moab, Egypt, Tyre, etc. And he's known for having some sort of um, flying device that was a bunch of uh, intertwined wheels. Um, or he was a intertwined wheel. I'm not sure. It's not very clear, but it's interesting because even here, when I asked ChatGPT, it says that the vision of the wheel is often linked to a being a UFO. That its description can be interpreted today as a flying machine. Um, it's very interesting. Uh, was he an Anunnaki? Were all these things just different names for the same things? Angels and demons, and I mean that's what we're trying to figure out. And so the mainstream says no. The mainstream says that this is all
Sure.
bullshit.
I can cover exactly what the mainstream says about it
Yeah, go ahead.
because yeah, and it's and I don't necessarily agree with it, but I need to present these ideas for you guys. It's basically it's based on Zachariah Sitchin's theories, popularized in the book The 12th Planet, and it posits that the Anunnaki extraterrestrial beings were from a planet called Nibiru, who genetically engineered humans as slaves for gold mining based on the interpretations of the Sumerian cuneiform tablets. These ideas were widely critiqued by scholars in archaeology, linguistics, and history as lacking empirical support and relying on flawed methodologies. Below I'm going to list some of the things that they considered the shortcomings. Mistranslation and lack of linguistic expertise. Sitchin was not a trained Sumeriologist or a Assyriologist. His translations of ancient texts are considered inaccurate by professionals. For instance, the term Anunnaki is commonly translated as princely offspring or those who of royal blood in Sumerian texts, not those who came from heaven, as Sitchin claimed. Experts argue that this reading imposes modern science fiction concepts on mythological narratives, ignoring grammatical and contextual rules of ancient language, which I'm sure they've mastered.
Because they were there.
Yeah. The ancient, the absence of archaeological evidence, there's no physical evidence of Nibiru as a planet or advanced alien technology in Sumeria sites, that's debatable. Astronomical data from NASA and observations contradict Sitchin's orbital claims of Nibiru. No such body has been detected in our solar system. Genetic studies of human origin show gradual evolution over millions of years, not sudden intervention around 450,000 years ago, as Sitchin's proposed. I disagree with that, but because I've not seen that. I've not seen that. What they show is they show 4 or 5 different humanoid species that never seem to get together.
No, they stay
and they go on their line and they die
years.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah, they go on their line and they die off. You know, and then poof, modern humans are here. Yeah, it's like
there is some sign between Neanderthals because there seems to be some genetic.
There's some crossbreeding, but it's like 12% in Europe and like 5% in the rest of the world and 0 in Africa.
Right.
So it's very small percentage. That just means some lonely people didn't have any wives.
Yeah. And after the flood, there was a kind of a shortage of hot women, and so we got freaky with the natives.
And
well, and the
other thing is that the classification of pseudoscience, and they say the linguistics are improper, and that basically the Greek it's a polytheistic system similar to Greek and Egyptian pantheons, not an evidence of ancient astronauts. That's what the mainstream media says about it, and as an alternative theory, and we can discuss this. The Anunnakis are angels, divine beings, or godlike figures in kingships. In contrast, the extraterrestrial interpretation mainstream scholarly religions views frame the Anunnaki as mythological or spiritual entities with ancient Near Eastern traditions. These alternatives emphasize the roles of divine judges, celestial beings, and symbols of royal authority, drawing from the cuneiform texts and biblical parallels and comparative mythologies. Here's a breakdown. So, what do you have to say? What did you get on that, Mike?
Well, I want to. Tanya said 2 things. She said that Ezekiel is most noted as being an angel. So she let me reread it. Most notably,
how did I don't remember.
Like angels. Say what?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember how he died.
Ezekiel is an angel.
And so did he just scoot off to heaven afterwards? I don't remember, so I'd have to look it up.
And then her next comment, which I think might be out of context, it was probably when we were talking about the various lines of human beings, is don't forget we were apes first, LOL. So I don't see when we talk about evolution, I believe evolution can happen in a given line of animals. Like over time, a cat can evolve to be a bigger or a smaller cat. I have yet to see, and I'm a dinosaur lover, and I followed all that stuff for years, and I believed in the theory of evolution, but decades keep going by, and we never find anything that illustrates where fish turned into amphibians, as an example. That would be the easiest one. They actually, in their own life cycle, they go from fish to amphibian, but we don't see any of that.
In the fossil record.
Right, and I'm skeptical. I know it makes me sound like a nut,
And
but
they're always looking for the missing link in humans.
and they can't
And
find anything.
basically, if you actually look at the arguments that uh, what's his name, Charles Darwin had when he was writing the book, the people that sponsored him told him that he was going to name the book the origin of the species, even though he admitted in many writings that there was no origin of any species in his research. All it showed is that when you take an animal and put it in a closed environment, the environment changes, the animal changed slightly. That's the only evidence he's ever proved.
And I see that as well. And when you look at the most interesting thing that I see is we're supposed to go from like Homo erectus to Neanderthals. There's this all these versions of Cro-Magnon and so on and so forth. And what we have just found, and I don't have it here in front of me, but I seen it a couple days ago, is that Cro-Magnon now they're finding anatomically correct human beings that would be classified as Cro-Magnon that are almost 1 million years old. So it's like they were all running. It's like lions and tigers running. They were just parallel streams of animals, and they they didn't seem to really connect in any way. Um, and
Well, do jaguars crossbreed with tigers or mountain lions?
no, well, if we put
Not
them,
really.
if we
If
take
they have
jaguars
no
and mountain
choice.
lions, if we stuck them in the same cage, they might fuck. But not normally.
No, they do not,
Yeah, I mean,
unless of course they're forced to.
right.
And so that's what happened with humans. Uh, and
And
there's no that what is the scientists have actually proven now. It's just micro evolution, not macro. There's no macro evolution. Uh, for example, a house cat, you can keep breeding it and breeding it and breeding it and breeding it and breeding it, and you can make it a little bit bigger, and then you put it back outside for a couple generations, it's back down to being the same size it was before. The horses that they let out into the West, the ones they've released and out there running around, and they're not being selectively bred anymore, they start getting stripes on their back again. It's you have to force them to get out of their gene pool,
right.
and they'll get right back in it.
It's the same natural forces that work for them for it. Just that preference just pops back up because they're generally more successful. But I don't see any examples, and so I think that leads. The So Tanya just asked, so did the Anunnaki screw the apes and then come up with humans, or did they just make us? What is been proposed?
Or neither one of those. What's been proposed is that we had humans here, and these beings, whether they're angels or space aliens, mated with us, and their offspring were huge. They were gigantic, and they were, as the Bible puts it, the men of renown. In other words, they were the people in charge.
There,
That's and most of the other texts line right up with that. Um,
well, the Babylonians have they have the half gods, but they also have what they call the Adamu, which is basically spelled Adam with a U on the end, and that was uh, the Adamu were basically and they have the same sort of setup. They were in a garden, yada yada yada. They were overseeing this experiment to make more people, because they had a working class of people under the Anunnaki who rebelled, and so for whatever reason they engineered a short-lived worker class that was in their image but much lesser, and so the idea is they took some stock of form of human that was pre-existing on the planet and then put some of themselves in it so that they could get language and follow orders, but they made them short-lived, and the demigods, or the Nephilim, or the in-between stage between the Anunnaki and the humans. There was a middle stage. Those were the people of renown.
Yeah, so now if you just use the different vernacular of the Bible, they would be fallen angels and Nephilim and the offspring of the Garden of Eden. They just run parallel, and if the if truth is truth, if they're both pretty much true, then they're true. Um, Whether they're
Well,
from space or they're from a different dimension or they were here for billions of years before we were, that's not really.
the
It doesn't
the
really say.
the Anunnaki supposedly are here because they are from within our solar system, and the idea is it's a planetary. Um, the one that I guess I prefer, because a couple different versions of it, is that Nibiru is we're a binary star system, and the other star that is actually with us is a red dwarf, and it's on a 26,000 year rotation, and it crosses.
Rotation from where? Where does it rotate to?
Uh, it crosses in through the inner solar system every 26,000 years. And then it goes back out to the Kuiper Belt. And the reason we have periodic extinction events and bombardments is when it comes back in, it's dragging a bunch of junk with it because it goes out. But this red dwarf has a planet on it, and that planet is failing. The atmosphere is too weak, and the reason they came here was they were basically trying to geoengineer their atmosphere with gold. And the idea, I don't know, is they were micronizing gold and putting it, and that's why we have a lust for gold. Why we see it as the premier metal is because it always had value to the gods. The gods would trade it, and so that's our initial.
Is there anything in the text, or is this just theory? When I say, does it say that's the reason why people love gold, or is that just a speculation?
Um, People have speculated that, but they definitely like gold. The Anunnaki like it because they were using it to repair their planet's atmosphere. They were using it to keep the planet warm, supposedly. I find that a little I find that a little weird, because I would imagine, wouldn't that reflect?
Yeah, see, I have a problem with that because if they were an advanced beings, they just bring robots and machines here and mine the shit for themselves. They wouldn't need us to do it at all. Matter of fact, they just get us out of the way.
Well,
Um,
there is uh again, I've only heard people speculate about this. It's not actually in the documents, but the idea that people have thrown out is that AI is bad, and that they did everything organically. Their whole technology was based on biology. I don't know if that's true, but they actually have.
it's what I would call, because I read a lot of stuff and on both sides, and there's a
It's a
lot of what I would call fan fiction.
Yes, it could
They
very well
want
be there. And again, we pre-established. Uh, so, what is gold to them? I personally think it's blood, but you think it's gold. What are they using it for? I believe number one, their planet doesn't have a lot of gold, and the so this part isn't speculation. This is actually in their documents. Is that Nibiru and this other planet was captured by our planet? Our star captured their star. Their star is much smaller, and they were essentially a rogue star. And that was always thought of as being bullshit. But recently, we have discovered that we're actually undergoing not Alpha Centauri, but another galactic cluster is actually colliding with us, and it actually is hitting where we're at. It's been ongoing for a billion years. We've been absorbing, and we're almost completely absorbed it. But that's actually something that was discovered very recently. But the idea is that Nibiru was captured by our star system, and that's why you see certain planets are in reverse rotation. Is they're actually from another galaxy, and that star rotates the opposite way of us. That's what they have said. Now, why they don't have a lot of gold on their planet, I think it's because they're a smaller planet, and I think that star creation is the catalyst for gold creation. It has to go through several versions of star death to make gold. You start off with these super large stars. They make lighter elements, and the smaller the star, the denser, the longer it takes for it to burn out, and the more fusion that happens to create heavier and heavier elements. And so our sun will produce even heavier elements. But you have to have enough star there and enough material there to form bigger planets to have high quantities of these heavier elements.
And in Earth in general, as far as the other planets go in our solar system, is the most dense.
Yes, and that's the whole. That's what.
In fact, they think there's a big ball of uranium in the center of it, and we have a small nuclear fusion engine inside our planet. That's what that heats the volcanoes, along with the friction of the moon and things like that.
Yes.
But from the gravity of the moon. But they actually think there's a fusion reactor, or which would cause probably more like a fission reaction from the uranium-235 in the core. So outside of that would be gold. So there's a large percentage of gold inside of our planet, and when volcanoes well up and spit it out, then a certain percentage of it comes out. So yeah, we have a lot,
relatively speaking, and that's what makes our planet interesting. Supposedly to these beings, but not just to them. The idea is that there is a variety of, because all high technology relies on gold. So you can't build computers, you can't build anything really high tech that requires a circuit board of any kind without gold. At least that's the easiest way that we know of. I guess you could do it with copper. Could you do it with copper, Tony?
Yes. This the reason that people use gold for certain things is it's non-reactive. Once you have gold forever. It doesn't. It's so stable that there's very few things that can change its form into something else. It doesn't oxidize. In other words, doesn't rust. That's why jewelry made out of it. That's why I see when you see King Tut's jewelry, it's exactly the same as it was when it was built. I mean, engineered or created, whatever.
Yes.
What I like to do is cover there's two topics that you and I discussed, that the angles that one is the parallels with the Bible, and the other one is the godlike nature of the divine kinship. the two things that people are arguing over what these texts mean in the mainstream. And they did cover the Elohim and the pluralness of it, and how the Egyptian pharaohs and all that kind of stuff. So we can cover that briefly if you don't mind, Mike.
No, you can. You do it. I mean, take it from the top. We covered it in a
Oh,
very disjointed way.
Okay, the parallels to biblical angels or fallen angels for the Anunnaki. Some comparative religion studies link the Anunnaki to angelic figures like Judeo-Christian texts. For example, they're equated to the sons of God or the Watchers. The Watchers were the angels that were watching over humanity after the fall. After the Garden of Eden, they were on earth watching us. And they were in Genesis and the apocryphal book of Enoch, which is not considered to be within the canon of the regular Bible, where divine beings descend to earth, interact with humans, face judgment for the rebellion. When they mean interact, they mean breed. And in this view, the Anunnaki represent fallen angels who taught forbidden knowledge. The Watchers are second fallen angels. We've had three different versions, three different batches of angels that fell. These are the second ones. And the interpretation, they taught us metallurgy and astrology and things like that. This interpretation seems to be as spiritual entities under the monotheistic God, not independent aliens. It is a support of the linguistics that ties Sumeria Anunnaki with the Hebrew Elohim, which is a plural term for divine powers, which in the Bible would be the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, even in the Old Testament. I know that some of the Jewish people don't like that, but that's what it says, and even in the Old Testament. And the other one is the godlike nature of kings and divine kingship. In other words, the divine right for kings to rule. In Sumeria and Akkadian cultures, kings were often portrayed as semi-divine intermediates chosen by the Anunnaki, who were, depending on your point of view, they were gods or fallen angels. The text, like the Sumerian King List, describes rulers as having divine mandates. In other words, God told them what they were supposed to do, and they're following through on it. With longevity exaggerated to symbolize eternal authority. Kings reigning for thousands of years as godlike figures. The Anunnakis decreed the fates of kings, granting them legitimacy through rituals like the sacred marriage ceremony, where the king embodied a god, and it reflects the theocratic system where royals were infused with divine essence, akin to the pharaonic divinity in Egypt, rather than the extraterrestrial origins and biblical echoes appear in concepts like the divine right of kings or the anointed rulers, such as David and Saul, as chosen by God, and also the pharaohs, of course. So that is two of the mainstream views of the Anunnaki. And
are those the mainstream? Because that's actually kind of implying that they were. I mean,
well, there's two large bodies of work. One is they were just a society giving divine traits to their rulers so they could worship them and they could stay in control. That's the second one. The first one is the biblical and Egyptian version of where they believed that the rulers were either they were part divine. In other words,
yes.
And they were given divine powers from the beings above, and they were different from us, rather than just having a divine mandate.
And what's interesting, though, is when you really look at some of the remains of the pharaohs, they are slightly different.
They're a little inbred. They have a little bit of a schnoz problem, and they have red hair, and their head shape is a little different. They wore funny hats.
Cranial capacity was higher. As much as I think we go up to like a max of 1600 cc's, and they had as big as 2000. That would make it theoretically different.
Yes, and as they tried to keep their bloodline clean, and they ended up crossbreeding with other people. If that was true, let's say they were crossbred from a different life form, over time those traits would slowly go
Diminish.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would explain to some degree why people started binding their heads to make it look like they had. I've never understood why anybody would want to do head binding and change the shape of their cranium. Um,
I thought it was for aerodynamics so they could be better divers and stuff.
in the middle of Africa?
Yes. They did it in Far East too.
Yeah, I know. And it's actually done in South America. And what's strange is all of those places have pyramids.
Yeah, we went and visited some of them, didn't we, Mike? Wasn't that fun?
That's
Wasn't that some nice energy?
so. Shell and I were looking up the most haunted places in the world, and that's one of them.
And I liked when we were leaving, and the locals said, "You guys need to get out of here now." And no one stays here after dark. No one. I heard them say that. I was like, "Okay, I believe you. I'm going." It's just like, and you could actually hear the jaguars like growling in the distance. So you're like, "Nah, I'm not going to stick around."
We didn't actually. It wasn't that we heard them growling. They were actually Shell fell behind. And there was one in the woods about 5 feet from her. She was complaining. She had Montezuma's revenge, and her flip flop broke.
And if she stopped to take a poop, there'd have been we would never have seen Shell again. One of the ancient spirits would have gotten the jaguar god there, and
it was nearly that. But yes, I remember when we were there, and to me, this is proof that there's something different about these areas. I think they're. I think it's misnomer to call them haunted. They're psychically charged.
well, if you have the belief that Nephilim and the Anunnaki are real and they're half spirit beings, after they pass, they have a little different future than us. From what I've heard and from texts in the Bible, they hang around. That and they're annoying, if you know what I mean.
They can be.
And um, but some people talk to them and want advice. I wouldn't trust them, but that's just me. Uh, but you can do what you want.
The uh, uh the idea that I've kind of come up with is that we're all half spirit beings, essentially. And particularly in light of some recent research that you and I have seen, it seems to indicate that there's a spectrum of how how much spirit being you are. And I think that there it's possible that we may have achieved higher levels of spirit being. I think we're diminished right now as a whole, and our society reflects that. But I think that it's so that story I just said about Shell getting Montezuma's revenge and breaking her flip flop. Tanya says that she does that every vacation. She goes on
Yeah.
vacation with Shell once a year, and she's almost always eaten by a mountain lion. They've
Well,
been
I
gunning
remember
for her since
I was up in the mountains with Tanya and Michelle, and they're look at the rattlesnakes. Aren't they cute? No, they're not cute. They're not cute.
So I have to admit that was and the whole time I was there at those pyramids, I felt like we were being watched. And I just
you had a very negative reaction to it. You turned green. I remember. Michelle got exhausted, but you were having a really bad time with it.
well, that was back when I was at peak hatred. Remember, I was trying to summon the dark side of the force then. All the
Well,
time.
you found it.
I did.
You found it there, and how was it?
Well, I didn't stay long
It
enough.
sucked.
I didn't stay there long enough to bathe in its glory. I was also having heat stroke. It was very hot. That was pretty horrible. But I did feel that there was something. Um, it was like I took a low dose of acid while I
Hmm.
was there,
Oh, I felt it too. There was
and
a buzzing. There was
yeah,
a constant buzzing, and the energy. As you remember, there was tens of thousands of people killed on top of those pyramids,
right,
and
maybe
and
millions, maybe
maybe
millions.
millions, and they let a lot of blood, and those the evil spirits like that stuff. So they're probably still hanging out there today. If you turn your back and I bet you go up there at night, there's still people being murdered there. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. Would
Um,
that surprise you?
the natives are still doing it.
Yeah.
No, I mean they're doing. I think they're doing it here. They just happen to be running the show. And that was actually what I thought about doing for this show, is talking about that. Is but the root of this is actually a better place to start. Is the root of all this stuff that's happening even today in our culture comes from these people.
Yes. Yes.
And it's
There's a reason for the flood.
yes. Um,
They weren't good people.
Not the leaders, and that's
No, not the
true,
leader.
and that's true again. Is were the sky gods were hungry. They were a thirsty group, and Tanya
So
thinks
when
I'm
you
an
said
Tanya thinks
you
I'm an
go,
empath. I very well could be. Um, so
at that point, he was a very pathetic empath. Poor thing.
it was not it wasn't the best.
No, I
So,
remember it like it was yesterday. I remember walking down that path, climbing up that damn thing. Each step was for a giant, of course. Isn't that weird that the steps are just perfect if you were like 12 feet tall?
right. Yes. And that's what I'm saying, is none of these things make sense. And the mainstream people like to say, "Oh, this is all a bunch of gobbledygook," but everything is built and constructed for a guy that's 15 feet
12 feet
tall.
tall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't make sense for regular people unless you're trying to intimidate them, and that's what it does. You go there, and that's what you feel. You don't feel like, man, this is some amazingly glorious, beautiful stuff. You feel like this is a meat grinder. I mean, like one of the things that I
Especially when you got to the top.
yes,
It felt awful up there. I mean, it was like I would just, I'm pretty spiritually tough when it comes to that kind of stuff, but it was not pleasant. It was not a wonderful experience. It's something that I really don't want to do again. Um, it's something I talk about in it with reverence because it was so overwhelmingly uh, evil. It felt overwhelmingly evil to
uh,
me.
yeah, it did feel off-putting for sure. Um, but I'll be honest with you, I want to go back.
I don't know if I want to go back on top of the pyramid. I'll stay. I'd
There's
like
another
to.
set of there's another complex, but we're getting off track, I guess. So the second story or version that I've read about is essentially um, a long living skyborn rulers that genetically engineered everything, and they're not mythological in any way. That they are essentially they may even be human. They don't even necessarily have to be from another planet. And so uh, taking the scribes literally, the King's List isn't allegory. It's a essentially a report, and the pre-flood rains of 28,000 to 43,000 years are just the lifespans of this group of human beings, and the flood basically everything changed, and I that's the kind of weird part, is why after the devastation of the Younger Dryas, um, which is now proven, more or less in my mind is proven, is that there's these meteor impacts that happened over basically in two sessions over a 1,000-year period. They first hit and they hit in the ocean, and it caused a nuclear winter, and then a second volley of them, probably from the same astronomical body that might have been in orbit and breaking up around our planet, and that finally fell to Earth. It is basically separated from by 1,000 years, 1,100 years. And
Yes.
the first strike, it caused a deep nuclear winter that caused everything to get colder than almost has ever been recorded. And then the second strike, it happens, and then it causes a massive flood, and it actually causes the oceans, everything to heat up, and the oceans to go up 150 meters in like a year. That's some global warming. But the reason I bring that up is when that event happened, humans basically across the board appear to go from living extremely long lives to having relatively short lives. Hi, Shell's here. We're talking about the Anunnaki, the ancient Babylonian gods, and that I have a theory about that. Why that could have happened is if the damage to the planet was so severe that it damages the atmosphere to the point where it reduces the thickness of it, everything gets smaller and lives a lot less long. And so the giants and all that stuff can't survive anymore, including the megafauna, because up until 12,000 years ago, there was a version of an elephant that lived in America that was 25 tons. It was as big as a brontosaurus. And then after that, nothing gets that big. And so I think I have a suspicion that that this might be that people did live a really long time, and the reason we live significantly less is the same reason why when we go into I'm drawing a blank on what chambers are called, hyperbaric chambers, that you all of a sudden become relatively immortal. People are doing these chamber therapies, and they're basically aging in reverse. And I think that if the atmosphere was twice as dense, and the air pressure was twice as high, just imagine the biodensity.
I've been pushing for global warming for 20 years.
Me too. Me too.
I don't think that having a large percentage of the planet being Arctic and permafrost with nothing living on it other than a few caribou and a couple polar bears is good for the planet. I think that, Northern Europe would probably be better if they had a nice climate like ours, because of the way that our planet's designed, the equator doesn't get any warmer. Because when it gets warmer, it just produces more clouds, and the clouds block the sun, and then so on and so forth. But it does just make the atmosphere that much thicker, and the overall temperature of the planet would get higher in the northern climes, in southern climes especially, but around the equator wouldn't change much. So what we'd have is a more uniform temperature throughout the whole planet, more moisture in the air. The ionosphere is thicker. Whenever it heats up, ionosphere gets taller. And like when they talk about global warming causing hurricanes, it doesn't. Actually, when the planet gets hotter and the atmosphere gets thicker, the temperature gradient between the ground and the upper atmosphere is less. In other words, the temperature changes less quickly, so storms aren't as powerful. It's when we had when it starts getting cooler and everything shrinks, that's when we have these massive hurricane outbreaks. And so the whole thing, we'd actually have less storms, and we'd have thunderstorms and things like that, but we wouldn't have as many hurricanes or nor'easters or anything like that, because the temperature gradient would be different from the base atmosphere to so yeah, I'm hoping for global warming. I'm hoping for the atmosphere to get thicker. I would like my plants to grow better, and I'd like to live longer. I mean, these
And
people that
so
want the opposite are obviously
so that's my argument
losers.
for the reason that this has happened, and why people don't live to be 1,000 anymore, and why it used to happen. Tanya wants all of us to go scuba diving. Fine, I'm in. We what we need to all do is go to Puerto Rico
I can stay
and
down there
scuba
for
dive for
pure
aliens.
oxygen. I know I should be, just pure oxygen at 10,000 feet. I'll live forever. I have a terrible life, but I'd be living a long time.
This, I don't know.
Could never come up. It'd take me like 6 months to come up, but
I don't think you just need to be at like 30 feet, right? Really? Isn't that double the atmosphere at 30 feet? Or is it 15? Is it every 15 feet you go underwater or an atmosphere?
I thought it was 30. I thought it was 30.
It could be 30. Tanya knows. Tanya will tell us when she hears us. But that's my argument for why humanity, because that's the thing that they point to as being bullshit. Oh, well, what would cause people to live this long? If the atmosphere was twice as long and they had decent science, we already see that these kinds of treatments can have radical benefits, and basically
Just for a couple hours a day. We're not talking about living in it 24 hours a day.
and then you look at all of the animals that exist, in prehistory, if they indeed existed. But let's say everything is true and the dinosaurs did get to be basically, I don't know, some of these new sauropods that they've discovered are like 100 tons. That I mean, a land animal that big. I mean, it's like just, but
Well, why does a whale get that big? Because they go down and they dive, and the oxygen gets into the system at high pressure, and they come back up because they're holding it in their lungs.
How long
So
does a
they're
whale
probably
live?
it's probably the I'm having some problem with bandwidth right now.
You sound
But they
fine.
probably that's why they get so large.
I wonder how long a blue whale lives.
I'm probably gonna have to reload it.
I can hear you fine.
Okay, it's my end. I'm going to have to reload it. I can't see anything or hear anything.
Okay.
Just hold on a second.
All right. So, 100, a whale can live to be, a blue whale, it says, can live 110 years. I was expecting 200, but to be honest with you. But to get back on track, so it essentially a pre-flood for the pre-flood King's List goes back. Can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you.
One atmosphere every 30 feet, Tanya says. Prehistory are the Babylonian Sumerian record goes back 240,000 years. What's interesting about that is the Human Genome Project estimated that there was a artificial change where our two of our chromosomes got fused, and based on the cycle of counting that they use, happened 250,000 years ago. And that is,
well, that's the biggest thing that they found out about these big leaps in genetics when they go from one species to the other, is that huge swaths of chromosomes just get spliced into these beings, whether they're a dinosaur that turns into a bird, or amphibians that turn into land animals or whatever. It's not uniform. It's not even. It's not slow evolution. Just boom, it happens. And that's not evolution. That's it sounds like engineering.
Yeah. And
we got the new improved dinosaurs out this week. You want to check it out, buds? Yeah, version 3.7. That's basically what was happening.
Yes, and I think we're humans 2.0. So yeah, I could go through all the various things. We've kind of covered that, and what's what is interesting though is that all of this seemed to happen in a very, like you were saying, in a very engineered way. The people, the culture, all of it just boom pops up one day, fully formed, ready to go. It's very interesting. The other thing is the etymology. It is you were saying the etymology of the was incorrect according to mainstream. Well, in another version of the etymology is it's skyborn royal line is what Anunnaki means.
Hmm.
And so
And I've seen the converse, where they said, because they use like pictograms, and they showed the star with 4 points on it, or 5 points, because they only knew of 5 planets. And so there's no way they could have been interstellar beings, because they would have had 11 or 12 planets. And the translation that there was 12 planets was absolutely incorrect, and that it was actually 5. And so they knew of Mars, Venus, all the close ones, and what they can see with the naked eye. And so yeah. And if you were, just for be the devil's advocate, in other words, I'm just going to take the opposite point of view for no reason other than just argue it. The If you were to want to build up your royalty to be wonderful, you'd make them from some other place, and they came here to rule over us, and we shouldn't, ever argue with them or rebel against them, because they're just so superior to us.
because
And,
they're
and, and
Democrats.
royalty's been using that because they're Democrats. Yeah,
Okay, so
they are the elites, and we should just listen to them. I mean, right?
I that's how I feel. I mean, they seem elite, don't they?
Yes,
Uh,
of course.
okay, so the final version, I guess, of all this is actually Sechin's version, which is actually the most popular, except for with academia. In general, most people who follow this stuff actually know about this more than the other versions, which is
Yes,
interesting.
it was by far the most popular one.
And so in the 1970s, Zachariah Sitchin argued that the Anunnaki came from Nibiru, a long period planet that they arrived here to mine gold and to bioengineer humans. Um, uh, and I guess some of the core claims are the Anunnaki equals an advanced extraterrestrial from Nibiru, and their orbital cycle is anywhere from 36,000 every 3,600 years to every 26,000 years. They don't, depending on who you follow. Uh, the um, the idea of the program was, you keep flashing out, Tony, for some reason, is to establish base, mine resources, and
I was looking at the yeah, I was looking at the other video, and I just shut it off because I think it was interfering with our broadcast.
um, they're the one. They're the ones that came with the idea that kingship comes from heaven, uh, uh, be, because administration's hands off during periods of return. I don't know what that means. There were upper and lower Anunnaki, heaven based ones and earthly based ones. Um, uh, I don't know what the Shuruppak flood layer means. Equals. Um, I guess there is a actual thing that we found that indicates a worldwide flood event in the geological record. There's I guess some sort of signs for this, and Yeah, basically it's the most popular version. The things that are against it that make it debatable is no one can demonstrate where this hidden planet or this extra celestial body is. That's the main critique against that, and the long lifespans. No one can explain the why somebody would live 40,000 years. I think we kind of have talked about it, but it is a very popular.
They'd also have to be very lucky.
What do
They
you
have to
mean?
be very lucky to live that long.
Uh, well,
Because usually lifespan is limited. If it's not limited by age, it's limited by luck, and bad things can happen to you. A
well,
rock will fall on you eventually. That kind of.
if they were partially spirit based, maybe they could. So the which is it? See,
Maybe they could regenerate if they got damaged. Yeah.
yeah. Do you remember the movie Stargate?
Yes.
Uh,
Yes, I just watched it about a month ago.
yeah.
Again,
The aliens. In that case, they were actually a parasitic alien that lived inside humans.
and there's a
But
lot of theories about that too. We can get to that in one of our shows.
yes, and the parasitic alien grants um, the human host a series of advantages, but they had the technology to regenerate the human body over and over again in that movie, and so that's one way. I actually think that yes, that we could get to the point where we're essentially immortal, and if you were careful, which humans are not, that you could essentially last tens of thousands of years. You'd only die by accident.
Yes, that's what had happened. You would die by accident. And and what happens to humans because they'd get bored of life, they'd start taking more risks. And since nothing can really happen to them, physically, they wouldn't die of a disease or old age. They start, you know, planning that way and taking risks and rather being more careful. And
And if that did happen, I actually see that uh, because the biggest problem we're having is stagnation in our culture.
mhm.
If people are playing it safe and things aren't happening because everybody doesn't have the resources or the time or whatever to get anything done. But if you had forever and you could plan big, you could get a lot more done. And if you had the mindset that you could survive a lot of things, uh, it may it like going to Mars and living 50 or 100 years to help build out the society, or you're colonizing planets and things of that nature, versus just or even doing big projects here become a lot more possible when people have longer time horizons and are less risk adverse. I mean, right? America.
I've posited that. I've argued that over extended period of time. You're correct, because you'd be able to plan long term. Right now, we can't plan long term because we have 20 years of actual work, and the rest of the time we're either too young or too old to do anything. And so we can't plan. We have to scramble around trying to get enough resources just so we, in our old age, there'll be something there for us. Now, if you live 10 times longer than that, the amount of time you have to gather up resources to do things it'd be like the argument that Thomas Jefferson had for elite people. The elites are important because they have enough spare time to investigate scientific things, to do great things because they're not worried about feeding themselves. And that was what would happen to our society. There'd be a lot of lazy people doing nothing, but it'd also be a lot of great people accomplishing a lot. And
I think that a lot of people would be eventually become great. People
yes,
are lazy
because it takes
because
the stress off
yes,
because
lazy
they're
people
worried
would
about
get tired of being lazy. I mean, a lot of people, when they
hopefully
mature,
yes.
a lot of times when people mature over time, when they're young, they're deadbeats, and then they're like, they get to be 50 or 60, they start to find motivation to do things. I mean, not everybody. Some people are deadbeats their whole lives, obviously. But right now, it's, let's say, if we're lucky, it's 80-20, with 20% being the people supporting everything. If it became 40-60 over time, that would still be a huge leap. And just the average person, if they just had 200 years, they're bound to find something new and figure something out. Where if they have,
If they
like,
didn't, they were like deadbeats and drug addicts, and they die anyways. So,
yes,
it would
unless the
be the
medicine was so good.
that we
Anyway,
kept resuscitating drug addicts. I don't. That'd be sort of a short-sighted way of doing things. But everyone wants to save their own family, of course. If it was your child, you try to save it. So there you go.
so the of the theories out there floating around on this, which one tickles your fancy, I guess, the most?
Uh, if what they wrote is at least partially true, I would think I would pick something that lines up with what over time has been accepted by all of humanity. Um, as not just recently since the invention of the atomic bomb where science is God, but before that, for tens of thousands of years, we had a belief system which included these ideas, and I would continue with them. In other words, I believe that there are we have a creator, and there are other beings that interfere with that, and that this story is not implausible.
Well, it's more than it seems, even closer to being the number one thing that makes me believe that some of this is true is exactly what you and I were talking about when we went to Mexico, and I'm sure you've been to the Parthenon and some of these other places. When you
I have.
when you see these buildings, they are clearly not built for you. Nothing about them is scaled right. And even when you look at old buildings, you go back and you look at old historical documents, even from the United States. Like, I seen this guy that went through a bunch of stuff in Salt Lake City, and his whole argument is the United States is, basically a recovering of an old empire, and that the empire's bones were still there, and that a lot of these buildings that we would have these events like world fairs, and we would go in there and supposedly build up these enormous buildings and structures and then tear them down in a year. But when you look at the photos from them, everything is scaled wrong. It's all scaled, including the doors, even where the doorknobs are. They're like head high. They don't make any sense. Why would you have a doorknob that's at 6 feet?
Basically, they had some stuff that was already built, and they just trotted it out and put it together like an erector set. And when they were done with it, they put it back. That's a I can because let me tell you, when I looked at actual colonial time housing and old time housing, the doors were about 4'10" to 5 feet tall on the buildings. I had to duck, and I'm not a big guy. I had to duck going into those houses. Those people were freaking tiny.
Right, because they had no nutrition.
Even in Jesus' time, he was 6 foot. Everyone else was 4'10" to 5'2".
Ex-
Those people were tiny,
Except for
and then
the
they had to deal with giants. I mean, that must have been pretty intimidating. Goliath showing up at 12 feet tall.
and so I believe that the plausibility of it seems significantly possible to me. I can't say 100%, but because of the buildings themselves, whether it's the Parthenon or these Mexican pyramids or any of the structures that are really ancient, they are enormously. They're not built to our scale. And then when you start factoring in things like you're saying here,
Yeah.
uh, it doesn't make any sense. But when you take the record, they're saying that there was a whole race of people that were running around, and they were all huge, essentially, and they've all died off because of various reasons. Um, Partly, I think, is because they can't survive in our atmosphere. It's not conducive to them.
Oh, is that a happy accident?
Uh, I I I don't think
It
that
sounded
it's
like someone was exterminating the infestation.
it's hurt everybody though. I think that the average human being would be much would be giant sized.
We'd be the size of we'd probably be the average size of a Cro-Magnon, which is 4 or 5 inches taller, but a head a lot bigger, larger brain, probably smarter. We do have a limit to our size, and a lot of that's a limit because of the lack of oxygen, and that's why bugs are only a certain size. If you increase the amount of oxygen and air pressure, they quadruple in size, which is a negative. Horseflies that are 6 pounds are probably not fun, but
That's you. Imagine going hunting
I
for
used
them.
to. They had such big ones when I grew up in Rhode Island, and I'm sure Tanya's seen a few of these. They were so big that when they flew around me, I used to hit them with a baseball bat.
Yeah, imagine a 3 foot.
And they'd fly like 50 feet after I hit them. After I smashed them, they'd fly like a baseball.
I actually
Yeah.
seen the most disgusting bug I've ever seen. So there is a variety of bee that is carnivorous, and they make meat honey.
Yes.
I was like, what the fuck? That's a horror show if I ever saw one.
So they go like, regular bees, honeybees, they go and take and they spit it out and it evaporates and they add enzymes to it in their mouth and they spit it back. So that's what they're doing. They're making like this enzyme solution out of meat. And you'll probably find out it's the most, amazing food on earth, but I'm not going to try it. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. Not gonna
you can. I'm gonna stick to my flour base honey. Uh, so
Yeah. I don't want any panther skull honey. I'm going to pass on it. Yeah.
yeah, I did see completely off topic, but you should try to find it. Is there's a video floating around on X of what they were calling the F-65. There's it's a passenger liner, and the some sort of stealth fighter plane comes up and is flying right next to it. You should look it up. That was I seen it twice now on X.
It's called the F-65.
Yes.
Okay, I'll look it up.
Yeah. It's flying right outside the plane, and he's filming it out. Who's ever filming it is filming it right off the wing. It's clear. You can see it good.
Well, they're not really worried about people seeing it then.
I think that's the replacement for the SR-71, and so that's like the Dark Star. I think last year they announced it was real.
Yeah, so they're not worried about it. They know that no one can shoot it down, so they're not worried about it.
Yeah, it's supposedly Mach 7.2.
For a conventional plane with, burning petrol, that's pretty fast.
That's pretty darn fast. That's like across the country. What in 60 minutes? How wide is
No, the SR-71 got across the country in 56 minutes.
Oh.
This thing would do it probably in 15 to 25 minutes. That's one spicy meatball. That thing must be on fire when it's going. The skin must be amazingly hot.
It must fly mega high. To help reduce the friction. Yeah, I hear it's a 7.2, and it's a spy plane, but it's also a bomber, and it's a nuclear strike. So
basically, it flies faster than the hypersonic rockets, and that means no one could shoot it down.
What is the fastest hypersonic rocket right now? Mach 5?
In the atmosphere?
Yeah, the
I'm
Mach
not talking about outer space, in the atmosphere.
Yeah. Yeah, the fastest air to air missile.
Okay. Mach 5.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Look up, see if the F-65 is.
They said they have research where they can get Mach 6.7 to Mach 10, but I'm sure that's in the outside the atmosphere. I'm sure. I don't think they can do that at sea level.
See what ChatGPT has to say. What do you want to do? So we just have an idea. I'll start prepping. Do you know what you want to do for the next show? Any ideas?
Do you want to cover that? The occult stuff that you were talking
Government
about?
occult stuff. You like that idea?
Yeah, I think that would be it'd be good to dig up some information on that.
And I think it
So I
plays.
let everyone know it's fictional. We know
Totally
nothing.
fictional, just like this was. But the idea is essentially that the powers that started the what we were just talking about, the Anunnaki and of course the Babylonians, invented occultism. Um, that still exists, and how does that play into modern government? And I think there's going to be that's going to probably be a much more interesting show than this one. Not that this one was stupid, but I think there's just so much there to uncover. I mean, particularly when we're looking at all this stuff with like the Epstein stuff, which seems to have taken off again. And I think it's an appropriate. Like, what are they doing? Why do they have all
And
these?
why are they doing it?
Yeah, but what do they get out of it? I mean, besides control, and they're a bunch of weirdos, they must they are at the top in theory.
Well, you got to understand that the reason I call them the parasite class is more than just a cool name. I also have some evidence that they, like you were talking about in Stargate, that's the arrangement they have.
And I suspect that to be true as well. I think one of the things I think about movies, it's one of the reasons why I don't watch that much of it anymore, is I think that's a lot of times what they're saying there is true in so many words. They're taking something that is true and then building a story around the idea to basically tell the populace, because as you know, their practice is that they have to tell us somehow the truth, and so they tell us the truth, and then they go, "Ha, we're only kidding. It's a movie."
Yeah, that's what they do.
And so,
Just like during 9/11, they actually told everyone that it wasn't an airplane, and and they said that the Building 7 was an implosion, and then after that they just changed their narrative. They tell you the truth up front, and then they lie to you, and everyone believes the lie.
and so
Because their morality says they have to tell you how they're going to screw you over. So you can't say you didn't know. For some reason, that's moral to them.
I'm sure it's the devil's in the details, I suppose.
Literally.
Yeah. And so I think that's probably what it is. I mean, that's probably not bullshit. If you get a chance, take a look at the thumbnail. I thought
like a lot of yeah. Look at the thumbnail. Do you know a lot of terrible things have happened on 9/11? Do you know why that is?
Isn't it a Muslim holiday?
It's the beginning of the Egyptian calendar.
I was close.
So they all arc back to the Egyptian religions, the old, old pyramidic Egyptian religions.
It is Tanya likes the idea. Hopefully, she'll show up for the. It'll be the Wednesday show. We do gaming, and hopefully, we sell drugs in video games on Mondays. Tony's really good at making
Fictionally, yeah.
fictionally. Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a, and we're hoping to drag Grayson in now that he's got his new computer, and he's going to be our enforcer. But
He can do it.
it is an excellent tie-in. It's because it's an obvious tie-in. Everybody can see it. It's just that everybody seen it for a long, long time, and we all joked about it. Oh, the people at the top are evil. We all knew. We just all pretended like we didn't know because it was easier to go along to get along. And it just got to the point now, where they're openly trying to kill us with biological weapons. You got to ask yourself, why are they doing it?
It's what they do.
They're evil.
That's what they do.
They're evil, and
that's their thing.
They're a death cult. They're it's the harvester of sorrow.
Were the Egyptians a death cult?
Yes, and
okay.
Although their death cult was a little, I would be a little more down with their death cult. Their death cult was like, you die and you're prepping your soul to survive death. Our death cult that we're having now is everyone dies and no one gets prepped. They all die early after we eat them. It's a much shittier death cult.
Fictionally, yeah. Well, this is all fictional. This is
this is all theoretical, hypothetical.
Purportedly theoretical, and for entertainment purposes only. None of this is real.
Yeah, we're not smart enough to know anything that's real.
Yeah, because this is comedy, really.
Yeah, it's listed as comedy. Probably we're not getting any. I have this listed as entertainment, but
okay.
If you're still with us, well, thank you, and we appreciate you watching to the end. If you could leave a like and a comment, and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Please, leave your theories below, or if you have suggestions of things that you'd like to see us cover, please do all that. And thank you for showing up. What do you got, Tony? Anything?
That's about it. Thank you, everyone. I think we can cover a lot of more of these topics more thoroughly and have a lot of fun with them. We should joke about it because let's be frank, if we take this stuff serious, we probably run off in the other room and hang ourselves. So this stuff needs to be joked about because that's one of the ways to get back at evil is to laugh at it. So I think we should. I think it's pretty funny.
What else are you gonna do? Life is a big joke anyways. So
good night, everyone.
Divine comedy. Good night, everyone.